Hi everybody, welcome to your video on how to begin the video editing process. And today we're going to be learning how to be able to use the software which we're going to use in class, which is Adobe Premiere Elements. If you remember our conversation about video editing, these are the 4 steps that we need to keep in mind every time that we're going to begin a project that we're going to edit. One is how to be able to choose the best footage. This isn't remember, to begin a process as somebody needs to be going and filming your clips or your shots ahead of time. This is all what we're talking about afterwards, the post-production. So the first piece is to take all that footage and decide which is the footage that we want to be able to use. Choosing the best footage, decide to keep some and get rid of others. Second thing is, once we have the clips that we want, we're going to put them into our editor and decide to start trimming them. That is, cutting off the front or trimming off the back, or finding what pieces in the middle that we actually really want to be able to use from that shot. The third step is called creating flow, which is be able to move your clips throughout in the timeline. And if you can remember, there is you can either shoot all of your shots directly in one linear fashion and then they'll always be in order, but oftentimes we shoot and we want to be able to use clips in different ways from different times that we shot them. And then the fourth step that we do is how we can add other things. We'll add effects, we can add music, sound effects, graphics, pictures, and such. And so all of this is going to be done in our program, which I'm going to teach you here today, which is called Adobe Premiere Elements. When you first open up the program, I want you to notice up across the top, there's a couple different choices of what layout that you want. In this class, we are every single time going to click on the expert layout. And sometimes if you find yourself not being able to see and have it feel the way that you're used to, it may not be in the right particular layout. So always choose expert. This is the layout that we need to become comfortable with. And in this layout, you should be able to see 3 different areas that is pretty much standard in every video editing program that we use. But let's talk about them. The first one is actually hidden right now. We can't see that, and that's over here on the left, and that is called your project assets. Or in other words, I call this your stuff, where all of those things that you're going to add into the video will be. When you click on your project assets, I can see here, these are these tiles, and I can make this window larger or smaller by grabbing the handle. But there's nothing in there. I need to be able to start putting stuff into this area, putting these different assets is the big word, but what assets really are the video clips. It could be photographs, it could be sound effects, it could be music, it could be graphics that we have made. Anything that is going to go in that we're going to see is going to live here. So we need to put some stuff into here, into our project assets. There's 2 different ways to do this. The first one over here, you can see I have it says a button in over here. It says Add Media. And if I click on that, it's going to give me a drop down that says, hey, can you go navigate and find a folder where there is some files and footage? So I can go over and say, hey, I want to try to be able to find. And these could be pictures or they can be videos. And now it has added that picture into my project assets. I don't want to necessarily use this one for this particular project, so I can click over here now, and then I can also delete this or clear it. And I like that it says clear and not delete, because there's a difference. I have removed this from my project assets, but that image still lives on my computer wherever I got it from. I've just taken it out of my stuff for this project. I'm going to show you a better way, and the one that I think that I would recommend to be able to use, which is to be able to take our folder of all of the stuff that we have collected for our particular project, and what we're going to do is be able to move all of them over. So I could click the project assets and be able to add, but what I'm going to do here instead is I want to be able to drag one of these, and watch what I can do. I can click on one of these, and I can just pull that all the way over from one area to the next and let go. And you can see it's adding the media in here, and now I have this file called bandconcert.mov. And .mov is one of the things we need to learn in class, is what the extensions are so we know what they are. So if I see MOV, we can guess that is a movie. It's one of them. There's several different files that are videos, and so that is now inside my project assets. And if I click in here, now I have this ready to go. The second area to take note of is this thing down here on the bottom. This is where the magic of video editing really happens, and this is our timeline. So a project assets is where my stuff is. If I want to be able to start doing things, I will now pull pull one of these assets down into my timeline. And now here I have the clip on my timeline. It drops it wherever I put my mouse, and I can see now I have a red line here. If you remember that red line, we call that the playhead. And I can be able to move. I'm grabbing the playhead, and I can move it left to right. And I can see here, if I'm moving it around in this area, there's no video in here, so nothing shows up. And if I move it this direction, I can now see the clip that is showing up. And that brings us up into our third area, what this is right here. So 1 is my stuff or project assets. 2 is my timeline. And our third part is this area up here, which is our preview pane. Basically seeing where we're at. Wherever the playhead is left, that is where the preview will be. And I can go over here if I want. I can hit the play button and it will play it. And there's other buttons I can toggle back. I can take one step or one frame back at a time is what this button does. Or I can rewind this thing, and now it's going to go in reverse. And the last one is I can go back to the previous edit point or to the beginning of that clip. And so that's what these buttons across the top here that are part of the preview. And so this is something that we definitely need to know. Project assets, timeline, preview. And if you can remember, this is very similar to what we saw in iMovie. So now I want you to start to be able to edit your project that I've asked you to do this lesson. I'm going to show you, I'm going to start over here a little bit. I have this one video called Band Concert. And by the way, notice this little green dot. Watch what happens to this green dot. If I go over here to my timeline, and now I want to be able to right click that, and I'm going to delete it from the timeline. Like I mentioned before, this video still lives on my computer, and it actually still is in my project assets, but notice the green dot is gone. And what that means is that this project is no longer in my timeline. And that is a way for me to help manage all those different clips that I have within my project assets to see what I've used and what I've not. I'm going to go back in over here and get rid of this one and go back to my folder from the beginning that I had. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to just grab one of these. I'm going to highlight all of my files in this folder. I can drag a box around them. I can also go to Edit, and I can go to Select All. And another shortcut is Control A. But one way or another, highlight all of these files. And now I'm simply going to drag them over. There's 28 files. I'm putting into my project assets. And now it's going to take a little bit, but all of them are going to come over. And I can see I have an MOV, which is a video, but there's other video file types. And you can see the computer is even trying to give you a little image of what they all look like to tell you what kind of that they are. So if I can see here these little orange cones designated, it's a video file. And there's different video file types. MOV is one of them, I can see here. There's another one over here that is .mp4. And our third one is one called .mts. So generally the ones that we're all going to be using in class will start with the letter M. But the easiest way for you to remember to know them is by seeing the icons that show up. Now I have another one that starts with M, but the icon is different. This one, it says changing it up .mp3 or inspiring presentation .mp3. And I can see it's a different icon. And even when I come over here and I take a look at some of these files, if I take a look here, there's changing it up, and now there is a little sound icon as opposed to a small picture, which means what these all, an MP3 is an audio file. So that's what we can use if we want to be able to bring music in there. Okay, so now I have all of my clips. And remember, the steps are I have decided which clips to keep and not keep. Then I'm going to start dropping them into my program here. And I can simply grab one of them, bring this all the way down here, and drop it into my timeline. And I actually drop it into this area here, which is video 1. And I can see that there's also a video 2 and a video 3. There's more of them, and I can actually scroll up and get to quite a bit. There's many different layers that we can have within our video program, and there's actually some below it as well too. If I wanted to do some audio only ones, narration or soundtrack, basically means do I want to have an audio layer underneath it. So I've gone back and I've dropped in this clip, which is called Link Day. I can see the green dot indicates it is in my timeline. And if I go over here and I hit play, I can now see my clip playing right there. And then basically the job from here on out is you're going to continue to drag clips down. And you can see some of them are larger than other ones. And basically, how large they are indicate the size of that clip or the length of time within there. Now, I've put big gaps between all of them. I have one here. Then I can move forward to this one and hit play for our principal. We can see him here, Mr. Stewart talking. And I have more of a gap here. Here's a picture of the band. Now, notice here is that I'm just dragging my playhead back and forth. It is moving me back and forth. So oftentimes to be able to see what's on the clip, you'll just move your playhead back and forth as opposed to hitting play every single time. And so now I want to be able to show you the trimming piece of it. Let's say if I only want a few seconds of this, I'm going to hit play and try to think where's about 3 seconds of a clip that I want. I'm going to hit play here. And so that's not bad. I like to see even the choir director there, Mr. Douglas, there doing his thing. And then I keep going back a little bit. Oh, let me see what that looks like when we come back to him. Let me hit play there. Now I notice at the end, the camera starts to move a little bit. Like I don't think I want the camera moving. So I think I'm only going to keep that beginning piece of it here. So where do I want it to start? And I'm going to now trim a little bit. And so I can grab the edges. The easiest way to be able to trim is if I notice, once I put my mouse to the left-hand side, you see it turns, the cursor changes from a normal white cursor that looks like this. Once I get it to the end, it starts to have this black and red. And that allows me to now pull in from the left. And basically, I'm just trimming the front of it, very similar to what we did in iMovie. And I can do the same on the back end as well, too, and trim in there. Now if I go back over here and hit play, we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I like that a lot, but I don't necessarily want the camera to come back a little bit, so I can grab again. But notice it's getting hard because it's really kind of quite small. So one of the last things I want to show you over here is this over here on the far right side. This is our zoom, a slider that will allow me to zoom out or to zoom in. And I like to simply just be able to grab this slider, or I can click one at a time. I think that's a little bit more too big. I like the slider here, and that'll allow me to just simply see more. It's not changing the length of time of this clip. It just gives me more to play with. So now if I'm going to go to about here, let's say, here's a neat tip. Watch this. If I leave my playhead right there, I can now grab the end of this, and I know where to pull to. I'm going to pull this all the way to just this red line. So if I pull back and let go, it kind of snaps. It feels like it should stick there. And now I think I have my finished clip ready to go. Beautiful. So I'm going to zoom back out of here, and I'm going to be able to move these clips together. And so there's a couple different ways I can do it. I can grab a clip and move it to the next one. I can move this one back over to the next one and this one. I don't want to do it every single time, one at a time. So I can, instead of just grabbing one, see how it highlights to a light blue instead of the dark blue? I can grab somewhere, click with my mouse, and draw an imaginary box. This highlights many of them. So now I have highlighted these 3 that I can move around. And now I can bring them all over here. So now I can be able to do keep them sort of clumped together. The last piece is kind of an interesting one. Is let's say if I just wanted to be able to move them over, I can do another thing, which is I can just click on the empty space, right click, and it shows a delete and close gap. And so now that's an easy way for me to sort of chunk all those together. And so now here's my video. And watch here, I can go to the beginning and hit delete and close gap. And now they're all at the very beginning over there. I have all my clips. And if I wanted to be able to move some of them around, I can click and drag. Watch what I can do here. I can pull one up to the top, move this one over, grab my cheer and move it over here and put it back at the end. Now notice, by the way, when it was up on the top one, it doesn't look the same. But if I notice, it's still a cheerleading clip. I just don't see as much of it because I can actually change the, it's the height of what we're seeing here on the thing, but it is on the timeline, but it's still the same. So I can have all of my clips here like that. And then the other piece is I wanted to be able to bring some music. Let's say if I really did like this song that was called Change It Up, I can bring this, and much like an iMovie, I'm going to put this down here to the bottom. And so now I have some music, and if I hit the turn arrow, I can see that. And now I have some music on there. We can notice even in the short time that I've been doing here, I could probably realize I would probably want to trim all of these down to just a few seconds, because one of the most important pieces of video editing is only keeping as much as you really need. The audience can pick up a lot, so watch what happens if I just trim a lot of these down to just a few seconds on each. How much faster it goes and how much us as the audience understands what's really happening. And the music kind of goes along with it. Let's see what this looks like here. Let me trim here these guys. All right, let's see what these few seconds look like here. The last issue is you realize I can see all of these lines here. There's a fair amount of audio with each one of these. And there's two ways to be able to adjust the audio. If I wanted to, I can just right-click this clip, and I can see here there's a choice that just says delete audio. Now, see how much different it looks from the beginning? I can see these wave lines on here on the bottom on this choir, but now I get to here and there's none. So right-click again and delete audio. Or if I messed up on that one. Right click and delete audio. Or another one I can do is see how there's a yellow line. That shows how the volume of each of these. So I can actually just grab the volume level and bring it up. You can see it now says 6 dB, which means decibels. I'm moving it up 6 decibels. Or the opposite, bring it all the way down to 0. So now if I go to here, you can see I can see that there's still music, audio there, but I'm not hearing it. And so one way or another, let's delete and get rid of all the audio on these things and go back to the beginning and see what this looks like. And I'd be honest with you, I would probably trim that down even more to be able to have those clips much shorter to be able to help the flow of all of this. And so that in essence is learning the beginning of the program. If you can remember project assets, our preview, and our timeline. And we're going to learn later in future lessons about how we can start adding transitions and such, and then also how to be able to save and produce this once we're all done. But good luck on your editing with Adobe Premiere Elements.